Hey, what's going on, everyone? So I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to kind of change pace today and actually cover my, it's not that secret, but I'm just going to say it's like my secret super strong organic coffee recipe. And I'm going to play around with the positioning here. I actually have this, the stand is quite short, and I actually have it a little bit on a box, so I might have to kind of move it around here and there throughout our conversation. But we'll kind of wing it, we'll improv it, and we'll see how it goes. I brought my notes here. And of course, my signature coffee, cold brew in glass, of course, so we're avoiding those microplastics. And the coffee is also organic, obviously. So I'm going to begin quite shortly, so I want to kind of go and enjoy the weekend today. And we'll rock and roll from there. So, you guys, coffee, it's so popular in the US, like freaking everyone drinks coffee. I don't know how many cups of coffee the average American has. I haven't looked into it. But we're going to be covering how to make really strong organic coffee that ideally has very minimal to no microplastics and also no synthetic pesticides and biocides. Because you guys have to remember, coffee, it's grown with like a gargantuous amount of biocides. Biocides are basically like a broad phrase for Alvin, good to see you. Kind of far away here, working on the spacing. But biocides are basically kind of like a broad phrase to indicate like pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, evanocides, whatever. Well, actually, good news. It's Alvin, right? Yeah, kind of a little far away from here. Good news. This recipe you could actually use for teas as well. I like green tea a lot. It's very, very healthy for your gut microbiome. It's just very rich in various other health benefits. So what we do here for coffee will actually work with tea also. So you guys, again, the goal here is when I drink coffee, like the one thing I hate about going out and drinking coffee, and I do it still sometimes because I like to go to kind of like a lounge and study there or read there and just kind of mix it up because I generally work from home and it's just nice to kind of get out. But one thing I hate is like when you go get coffee, first of all, it's like way overpriced, you know, like a single cup of coffee at home. I'm even going to break down the rough cost here. It depends on how you dose it, of course. But a single cup of coffee at home can cost you like 50 cents to make, you know? And when you go out, you're paying, you know, like $4, $5, $6 for that cup of coffee, and you have to give a tip. And I've noticed recently, like the cashiers or the front desks, they don't even let you really even tip less than 20%. Where you guys remember, like in the past, 20% was like the gold standard. If like the person went way above and beyond for giving you amazing service and making you feel welcome at home, et cetera, but now like 20% is the bare minimum. So when you count like paying for gas, you know, driving over there, gas is kind of going up in price, it looks like now as well, and you count the cup of coffee, I mean, you're looking at like at least $8 to $10 for that single cup of coffee. And it's not even organic, and they usually you know, serve it in like a paper cup, but the problem is the paper cup has like a plastic lining, so you get like a tremendous amount of microplastics in your hot coffee. We're going to be covering like strong cold brew today and how to make strong organic cold brew without any of those chemicals. But when you heat up a lot of those, when you heat up the coffee is obviously served very, very hot. It exaggerates the potency of a lot of those chemicals, and in fact makes even new chemicals as well. And you could be drinking that like pretty much every day or multiple times a day, and then the toxic load bioaccumulates over time. And I know this doesn't seem like too big of an issue from cup to cup, but think about it this way. I mean, 50% of Americans do develop cancer in their lifetime, okay? So 50% is quite high, and half of them die from it. So basically one out of every two people you know are going to get cancer, and then 1 out of every 4 of those is going to die from cancer, you know? So it's quite serious. So it's the weekend, you know, let's say you go out with friends, it's you and 3 other friends, like 2 of those friends are going to basically get cancer and one of them is going to die from it. So it's a very serious issue. There are a couple of reasons of why a person would develop cancer. The bulk majority of cancers happen because of many years or decades of poor lifestyle and nutritional choices. It used to be believed that it was like all genetics and there's really not much you can do about it. But in reality, what it's looking like is a small percentage of them are actually genetic, but the bulk majority of them are due simply to poor lifestyle and nutritional choices. But that's good, you know, because then you have way more power over that, you know what I mean? And the big players, it seems, are, you know, chronic stress lowers the immune system, exposes you more to various, you know, environmental toxins, industrial, or agricultural biocides, et cetera, et cetera. Then combined with, you know, the average male, Matthew, what's going on, man? Then combined with the average, you know, male body fat percentage is around 27%, 25% and over is considered obese for a male. And when you combine that stress, plus being chronically overweight, plus like a huge toxic load, which people get not from this coffee, but just coffee in general when they go out and eat and pay a lot of money for, it adds up, you know what I mean? And the chances of cancer kind of increase quite a bit, especially if a person isn't using movement as medicine or isn't eating organic food, then the chances kind of go up more and more and more. So a lot of people say to me, well, Eugene, you know, I have a family history of cancer or high blood pressure. And a lot of this, so I have a higher chance. It's true, you do have a higher chance, but it's not because it's like something in your family gene. It's more over, and not to put parents down, they try their best. A lot of parents are amazing and they try their best with the little help they get oftentimes, but just a lot of their poor habits that you end up doing unconsciously or unknowingly. And obviously, you know, if those habits, you know, led your dad to have high blood pressure or cancer, then most likely it's going to happen to you too. You know what I mean? And that's okay, because as one of my mentors, Brian Carroll, told me, you know, I kept, you know, he already educated me on what to do in terms of like not getting injured, like having a spinal injury and working out, but I kept doing it because I was stuck in my old belief system. And one day I did it again, and he said, well, you know, at this point, Eugene, you know what to do, and you know you're doing it to yourself, you know? And if you're doing it to yourself, you can stop any time, which is very powerful. A lot of people don't like that because it puts the accountability, you know, in your court, but I like it because then it keeps the power to you, you know what I mean? So anyways, let's go ahead and break down. So I'm gonna work on the spacing here, guys, but basically you'll need a few things, and you can get all of these at like your local store, or I bought a lot of them from Amazon. So you'll need a few tools. Let me just look over my my notes here. So if you want really strong coffee, I'm talking about like really, really strong. Personally, what I found to be the strongest was, or is rather, Death Wish coffee, okay? They're certified organic as well, which is great. And I'm not getting any kickbacks from these guys. This is just what I use personally. And I found this to be very, very strong. Because I'm not doing any steroids or peptides or anything, you know? So I rely on more of these like natural sources to enhance my performance while working out, you know what I mean? And it works really well. So Death Wish coffee, but select a coffee brand that you like. This may be too powerful for some people. So inevitably there are no absolutes. You just have to, you know, find a brand you enjoy. But I really like this brand here. And they're sold pretty much anywhere, like Whole Foods, Sprouts, Walmart, Amazon as well, etc., etc. So another thing you need is these filters right here. So these are called basically coffee filters. And you need a wide mouth lens. And these are food grade stainless steel, which is great. This is silicone, so you're not getting those microplastics there. This is steel, obviously, not plastic there. And you're gonna need this, ideally 2 of them. because I brew, as you guys can kind of see here, just 2 of these guys, and it lasts me all week. But of course, it depends on how much coffee you're drinking. You know, and we're going to go over how to drink coffee sustainably for your health, because you don't want it to crash your adrenals and mess up your HPA regulation. Okay, which happens to a lot of people that misuse coffee. They end up being just even more tired. You know, so right over here, coffee filters. 64 ounce, okay? Ideally, you want 2 of them. And these guys here are also 64 ounce glass ball jars. All right, these you can pretty much, again, buy anywhere. Again, glass preferred. Try not to do it in plastic, because again, you want to reduce your exposure to those microplastics. I think these days, unfortunately, it's impossible to have like literally 0 exposure to microplastics. But doing all of these things dramatically decreases your exposure. And just to be healthy and to decrease your chances of cancer and all sorts of various other diseases, you want to try to keep your toxic load as low as possible. And right now, for most people, their toxic load is very high. Like the average newborn born in a metropolitan area, like a typical metropolitan area, is already born with trace amounts of 120 different industrial chemicals and agricultural chemicals in their bloodstream already. And that's even more troubling than an adult being exposed to that same quantity and diversity, because children obviously have a much smaller metabolism, you know, so the impact of those chemicals are far greater. And so it's something to consider, but this is one tool you can use to just decrease your exposure to those microplastics. And if cardiovascular issues are a concern for you, like, hey, I don't want to have a heart attack, you know, or a stroke, which is a serious issue because 900,000 Americans die from cardiovascular complications like heart attacks every single year. 900,000, can you just imagine the amount of body bags that is, you know what I mean? And the devastating impact it has on the economy, because you're losing a lot of consumers plus taxpayers. You know, it could be, I don't know the number, but it could be in the hundreds of billions of dollars lost every year. And the devastating impact it has on those families. You know, you lose a dad, you lose a mom, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the number 1 reason for death in the US as well. It's, I think the first one is heart disease, second one is cancer, and the third one, you guys believe it or not, is medical malpractice, okay? It's the 3rd leading cause of death in the US. Depending on the numbers you're looking at, it's somewhere between 250,000 to 400,000 deaths every single year just for medical malpractice. It happens very often, especially from medical drugs, you know, medical drug side effects, which are always a tremendous amount, especially with chronic use and not well managed. Another thing, so here's the thing, with these here, you're gonna get, I love that company, I just don't like this part of it. You're gonna get these guys here to close them, okay? And this is great for canning, but you see this part here, once it scratches off, you get those microplastics in the coffee then, okay? So I don't actually use these here, although this is what you're gonna get with the 64-ounce ball, wide mouth. Always choose a wide mouth, guys, just in general, because it's much easier to clean as well. So something to keep in mind, because you can kind of just fit your hand in there. Now, to overcome this problem here, I bought these from Mason Jar Lifestyle. They're stainless steel, so you can see, stainless steel. They don't sell on Amazon, I believe, but they have their personal website, and they deliver quite quickly. And check this out. They come with this silicone lid for better sealing. So you would just simply put it in here and done deal. And when you need to clean them, it's easy. You just take it out, you can clean it. Honestly, you could even just use this right here. But I like to seal it a little bit more firmly. And it comes with this little kind of support here. So it's kind of easy to take out, you know? So you can just kind of boom, leave it in there, just like that. So there you go. And now you have like a complete unit. So basically, yeah, these guys, no microplastics at all. This is stainless steel, this is silicone. This is glass, definitely no microplastics there. This is stainless steel, and this is silicone as well, no microplastics there. You just kind of put this in and bam, right over, and then kind of seal it. I'm also going to do it on this slide as well. I usually have 2 of these brewed. You can see here, I have 1 brewed here. That's what I used to fill up this one right over here to have energy for you guys for the live today. And let's see, 2, okay, cool. So that's basically all you're going to need in terms of materials, okay? So there's a little bit of an upfront cost. I forgot the exact cost of all of these things. This right here is like 16 bucks if you get like a subscription, and I got a subscription. And this lasts me like maybe 2 weeks, you know, or like a week and a half. I only drink coffee like first thing in the morning. I'm not like a daily coffee drinker. So I basically get up in the morning, I drink my coffee while I kind of look at the trees, you know, just to get my central nervous system woken up a little bit. And yeah, and that's it. I don't drink coffee too late at night. And I'll explain, especially like past 10 a.m. and I'll explain why later. So we got some questions here. So David's asking, no, it's actually a great replacement for microplastics. And where did you get the silicone lids? Okay, yeah. So the silicone lids, they come with, if you go to Mason Jar Lifestyle, I think masonjarlifestyle.com, when you order these, the stainless steel lids, they come with these as 1 unit. If you can't find it, just leave me a comment in the comment section and I'll look at my kind of purchase history and be able to find it. I wasn't able to find these on Amazon or anything of that sort. I did look before, but it's been, you know, quite a while, so maybe things have changed. So, okay. Now, why organic coffee? Like, why am I so stuck on organic coffee and not just buying the normal stuff? Well, that's a good question, you know, and a lot of you guys may ask that question too. So you have to remember, you guys, whatever your entire body and mind, which produces your thoughts and allows consciousness to kind of experience the external world, is made out of food, right? So you cannot, under any circumstance, expect to be healthy eating sick animals and plants grown with a bunch of chemicals or processed food, or expect to be good looking, you know, or have good skin or any of that sort. That's just not how it works, you know what I mean? So whatever you eat, you kind of reflect that. So if you eat poorly, like your skin quality is going to reflect that, your hair quality is going to reflect that, your body composition is going to reflect that as well. Typically also considering, you know, biocides or pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, etc. As your toxic load increases, typically your body will actually begin to store more body fat as well. And why it does this is because while it takes the chemicals away from your organs, it's much safer. So for example, you know, you could survive without your right arm, you know, or your right or left arm, but you can't survive without your liver. So as your liver begins to, you know, become too toxic, your body will start storing body fat to take toxins away from your visceral tissue and place it externally. On top of that, just a lot of these chemicals, unfortunately, are estrogenic in nature. So it would be nice if they, especially from a male perspective, right? But females need this a lot too. It would be nice if it bumped up your testosterone through the roof. You know what I mean? All these chemicals, that'd be great. You know, I might change my mind then. But unfortunately, all it does is just bump up your estrogen, and it typically causes you to aromatize your testosterone into estrogen as well. And then you got a lot of other variables, like the person happens to be overweight already, which causes a lot of aromatization from testosterone back into estrogen. Then as estrogen increases, estradiol increases, etc., your body has a tendency to store more fat quickly, and especially in more kind of like feminine areas, like the lower chest, you know, the butt, the midsection, kind of start developing more of like kind of like a pear shape with your physique, etc., etc. And you guys, it's so important to understand that there's no safety testing done for any of these chemicals in the US at all. I know it's like weird to hear that. You're like, whoa, Eugene, there's no safety testing done for all these agricultural pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides before they're being sprayed on the food I'm eating? No, there aren't. And it's so easy to check this yourself, especially now with, Google AI or a lot of those AI agents. You can kind of investigate this yourself quite easily. It's open source data, and everyone in the agricultural industry knows this. How it works is, I'm going to stop saying biocides. I'm just going to say pesticides because a lot of people understand agricultural chemicals as pesticides. So I'm just going to use that word from now on. But just know I mean just the general category of all biocides, all chemicals used in agriculture to grow your food. And what's required by the governing bodies is that these chemical companies test these pesticides as an isolated active ingredient on its own, okay? So with any chemical, I don't have really any chemicals here, but with any chemical, you have the active ingredient, but you also have like a whole bunch of inactive or inert ingredients. And like, for example, in some formulations like glyphosate, and there are hundreds of different glyphosate formulations. Take that in mind. Keep that in mind, okay? Typically, 40 to 50% of the formulation will be its active ingredient, which is glyphosate. But the other 40 or 50%, and if you guys are going to Home Depot this weekend, just go to the area where they sell Roundup Ready and look at the back of the canister, and you will see there's a large list of inactive ingredients, and it's always listed as a proprietary blend. So it's never made public. This is kind of quote unquote company secrets. Now, the average consumer thinks that these companies are taking that complete formulation and kind of spraying it on an apple or something and testing it for safety that way. Not the case. They just take the active ingredient in isolation on its own and test for safety from that vantage point. The problem is that's never how it's actually used in the real world. And the reason for a lot of these inactive ingredients is simply to make the active ingredients stronger. That's it. And more persistent in the environment so it doesn't get kind of washed away by rain or wind, etc., etc. That's the main thing. So obviously when you take them out, your active ingredient is going to underperform in pretty much almost all pesticides, okay? That's just how it works. That's why they're put there to begin with. And it's the equivalent of kind of a more maybe common sense way of describing it. It's the equivalent of like, saying bullets are not dangerous. Well, they're not dangerous, when they're alone, when you don't have a gun, but no one uses bullets without a gun in the real world, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. And this totally goes under the radar of most Americans, you know what I mean? And then they eat a lot of this food that's grown with a gargantuous amount of chemicals, and they think like, why does my skin look so bad? Why did I get cancer? Why do I have all these random digestive issues? Like glyphosate is closely correlated with, negatively impacting your gut dysbiosis or negatively impacting your gut microbiome. Why do I have this issue, this issue, this issue? And they go to their local doctor and they're like, here, get on some more drugs. You know what I mean? Let's increase your chemical load even more and mess up your biochemistry even more, et cetera, et cetera. So that's so important to know. And overall, certified organic food, we can talk about that certification body for quite a long time. It's a huge upgrade. It's in everyone's price budget, okay? I know a lot of people are like, well, it's too expensive. If you really break down the math and look at the numbers, it's not more expensive. And in fact, like the average American spends like $8,000 to $12,000 a year, like eating out, alcohol, little trips here and there, just other non-essential stuff that really, honestly, doesn't benefit them in any positive way. In fact, contributes to a lot of their like obesity and health problems, because when they're eating out, they're eating kind of shitty food. But that's so important to understand, you guys, so don't be fooled. There's no safety testing done on complete formulations at all for any pesticide used on any of your food at all. And not only that, it's like, so I wouldn't listen to a lot of these MD influencers online that are saying, oh, the safety testing is done, like Dr. Eads would say, like, oh, look at the safety testing, and they pull up the USDA organic website and they go like, see here, it's all safe. what he's referencing is only the active ingredient in isolation on its own. Again, none of these safety studies that they're quoting are testing the complete formulation. There are so many studies now done on complete formulations. And when you find those studies, you will see the complete formulation is gargantuously more toxic than the active ingredient in isolation on its own, which is what it's supposed to freaking do. I mean, it's so common sense. So next time you hear any of these, drug dealing, like medical drug dealing influencers kind of saying this, ask them, show me the studies, because they also claim to be data influencers, like data-driven influencers. But they have no data to make, it's a data-free assumption what they're doing because there's no safety testing done on complete formulations. It's just like what they're doing. They're just reading paper and they wear a lab coat and a stethoscope, and people that are sheep like-minded and don't critically think for themselves automatically believe literally anything they say. Even if that influencer with the white lab coat tells them to go jump off a bridge, they probably will do it too. Another thing to consider is, like I mentioned, you guys, this is so important. Cancer is so high. 50% of Americans develop cancer, which is super crazy. And half of them die from it. So you're looking at about 150,000 deaths from cancer every single year. Just think about like football fields. If you lay bodies side by side, like how many football fields that would be every single year. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure at this point, everyone knows someone in their friend group or family group that has had cancer and died from it. You know what I mean? So it's a very high percent, 50% obviously. It's like a coin toss, And one of the contributing factors is just a very high toxic load from a lot of these agricultural chemicals and industrial chemicals as well. With industrial chemicals, it's a little bit tougher to avoid. You can live in like remote areas, but if you're living in the city, it's a little bit tougher. But with agricultural chemicals, following steps like we're covering here, it's much easier to decrease your exposure gargantuously, okay? So a lot of times too, guys, with these influencers, I just want to kind of touch a few more important points regarding all of these pesticides and chemicals being sprayed on your food. They would say, the influencer would say, like, the dose makes the poison. You hear this all the time. It's like they parrot off each other. They copy each other for content. What happens, guys, in the influencer space is usually there's like one top influencer in a particular area, and they post a video, and then all their little, sidekick parrot tag-alongs, they kind of watch that video and then make a rerun of that video, like rephrasing it slightly to kind of, ride the wave of those views. You know what I mean? So a lot of these, data goofballs, they're not even doing their own research. They're just depending on this first guy to do the right research, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of them say like, oh, dose makes the poison. You know what I mean? These companies, these governing bodies like the USDA, FDA, et cetera, they set like a limit, or EPA, and they go like 1,000 times or 100 times less than that limit, and it's already kind of safe at that limit or whatever. Again, it's a data-free assumption because they're not referencing the complete formulation, A. B, the dose makes the poison is, I forgot the guy's name. He's a researcher from Salzburg. He's a very interesting kind of physician. He traveled around the world. He even got caught by the Russians at one point when he was in the military and like escaped. I freaking forgot his name. But it's funny because back in the day, he was very critical of the medical industry being parrots, just reading books and never going out and testing these theories in the real world. And I see it's kind of like not much has changed since the 1800s, because that's exactly what a lot of these data influencers do. Same exact thing. So they say like dose makes the poison. Problem is this model is the original model of toxicology, but it's very old. It's like multiple hundred years old now. And of course, things have changed since the 1800s quite a bit. And there are many chemicals that have been introduced into the agricultural industry in the US since then. And a lot of these chemicals, at least to my research, maybe around 700 to 800 different brands, have a non-monotonic dose response. So meaning, as the dose gets lower, it becomes more dangerous. You know what I mean? Because typically when people think of toxins, they think of like, oh, as the dose gets higher, it gets more dangerous. And that's a monotonic dose response for a toxin there. But there are many, at least, like I mentioned, a couple hundred brands, it's a non-monotonic dose response. So again, like atrazine, as the dose gets smaller, it becomes more dangerous for you. You know what I mean? So a lot of times people are like, oh, there's like such small amounts of, these chemicals on your crop or your apple or whatever, it's not a big deal. So another myth, people think they could actually wash these off. You can't. A lot of these chemicals are systemic. They get soaked up by the root of the plant and then get filtered up into the actual body of the fruit or the vegetable, et cetera, the crop. So there's no washing it away. And the majority of the chemicals are embedded like that. Very, very little of it is actually on the surface to be washed off. So that's another thing. And sometimes you can find studies on pubmed.gov, go for it. You can find a lot of these chemicals, even in 1 drop per Olympic-sized swimming pool, so like probably 1 part per trillion, have a negative impact on your hormonal system. And you can't even see that, you know what I mean? It's just like, wow, imagine how big of an Olympic swimming pool is, like 1 part per trillion, you know what I mean? So with non-monotonic dose responses, 1 part per million may not be toxic, 1 part per billion may not be toxic, but 1 part per trillion all of a sudden becomes toxic. So something to consider, okay? That's why there's various levels of integrity of organic, but at least buying USDA organic, which is this logo right over here, is a good step in the right direction. It's a pretty strong logo in a couple of different ways. So let's see here. Usually forget what I want to mention. Yeah, and then the last thing before we move on is the synergistic effect. In the field, farmers don't just use 1 complete formulation, they use many complete formulations during the growing season. And when you start stacking chemicals, they create new, like more potent or more dangerous chemicals. And a lot of times, and this is where you need field experience to actually see it, and I've seen this, a lot of farmers they have that backpack, you probably see it with the sprayer, and they're wearing the backpack on the back. They put like 4 or 5 different formulations into that single bucket, you know what I mean? And spray the crops that way, okay? So you're getting now exposure to like 4 or 5 different complete formulations as a single cohesive unit, as a synergistic unit. So now instead of like 1 + 1 equaling 2, 1 + 1 is also, 1 + 1 now is like 20 or 30, you know what I mean? So these are all things to consider. And guys, trust me, I'm not freaking exaggerating here, okay? Like, it's the weekend, go outside anywhere, and literally 9 out of 10 people you run into are sick or dealing with some kind of health issue in the US, all right? Because, you're not supposed to be eating sick animals and plants and all these chemicals and processed food and stuff like that. It's just not happening. So let's see, Mark is asking, it feels like these chemicals are constantly trying to catch you on a daily basis. It is something against chemicals trying to, and the chemicals trying to damage you. Mark, it's easy, man. It's not going to solve all your problems, but at least just buying USDA organic food is a good step in the right direction. I wrote that book, the Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide. I have that new book, American Culture and Normalized Pathology, which to my surprise hit #1 Amazon bestseller recently. That tells me that people are starting to catch on, like, hey, I can't medically drug myself into a life of happiness, health, and good looks, and probably all these chemicals and this shitty quality food and working 80-hour weeks is not good for my health or my appearance, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So I would check out those resources. And Mark, I've done so many free solo casts on agriculture and kind of what to look for and how not to get confused by the greenwashing. So, okay, so that's the reason for organic. But remember the microplastics, you guys. Those are important to consider too, especially if maybe cardiovascular issues are a concern for you, because a lot of these microplastics could build up in your arteries, so kind of like near your heart, for example, and add to possibly already plaque buildup that you might already have there, you know what I mean? So it could increase your chance of a cardiovascular episode. I have that book. Yeah, that's it. I mean, all your answers are there. Mark, it's easy. And I even listed the freaking ranches of where you can order from, you know what I mean, and what logos to look for. Just follow that, and you're already in like the top 0.0001% of the US population. So, in terms of microplastic, guys, I gave you a bunch of resources of how to dramatically decrease, if not completely eliminate, the microplastics. Okay. Now, in terms of the doses, how do I make this coffee super strong? Okay, so I'm going to do it right here. Guys, this is just the bag I have. I actually have this brand in this bag, just so you know. But there's nothing wrong with this brand. You just got to pick a brand you like. In terms of like strength, you want it to really hit you hard. I found this one to be like the best one, okay? But experiment. So what I do here is 2 cups of ground coffee. That's usually a good dose. That's what I do personally. But again, just experiment. Because sometimes when it's a little too strong and you're not used to it, it makes you like really jittery and anxious during the day, and you don't want that either, you know? So here, and then I basically measured these out so many times, and 2 cups is like roughly like right over here, you know? So, but I would be more precise with your measurements in the beginning, so that way you find a really good dose that works for you, and then you can just kind of copy and paste that process. So I'm gonna push these guys in here and show you guys after. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. There's that. So you guys, here you go. They're kind of filled up. I'll show you right here. It's pretty much to the top, okay? So it's like, I don't know, 95% full. So another key thing you want to consider when making your coffees, you want to have filtered water. If you want absolutely zero exposure to the like 100+ chemicals you get from unfiltered like faucet water, 5-stage or 6-stage reverse osmosis with a remineralization unit is going to be the best. But you got to drill, you know, you got to install that. I use a Berkey. All right, it's good enough for me. It filters out like a tremendous amount of the chemicals as well as the hardness, and it gets rid of, I don't know if you guys can see me, let me adjust the camera a little bit. It gets rid of pretty much the chlorine. A lot of people don't know, but chlorine is actually a very dangerous pesticide as well. And you're gonna get, like from a faucet, a lot of chlorine. I think last time I measured it was like 2 or 3 parts per million. And then after it's filtered through this unit, it comes down to like 0.001 parts per million. And usually that number is indicative that it's like so low it can't even be detected, you know? So what you want to do here, I go here, and you want to just slowly have the water release. So you don't want to turn it on too fast, you want to let it trickle in there, because it's going to overfill too much, and then it gets like really messy, you know? So I'll just leave it there, and I'll just let it fill up actually while we're chatting. And basically that's it, guys. And for the potency, if you want it like moderate, leave the filter for like a day, 24 hours. I found if you want it like really strong, it's like 2 days, maybe 2.5 days with 2 cups of the ground coffee that I mentioned. Then it's gonna be really, really freaking strong. So like, if you want it on Monday, you know, make it on, Friday night or something. And the good thing is you're pretty much set to go for the whole entire week. Like I mentioned, I just drink coffee in the morning. And I go through 2 of these for the whole week. And, I didn't do the due diligence on here in terms of getting the cost, but it's like $1. It's like $1 per, I think this is like 24 ounce maybe. I don't know how much is in here, but basically I just drink one of these here. And it's like $1. And you get to, do it in a quiet, at your own place, at your own time, whenever you want, et cetera, et cetera. And again, not only is it cheaper, not only is it way stronger, because a lot of times you go to some of these coffee shops and it's like you're drinking freaking water, but it's organic. It's also, you also get pretty much no to zero microplastics as well. And you don't have to tip freaking 20%, you know what I mean? Pay about $10 once you count the gas of driving to the coffee shop and the coffee, pay about like $10 for like a cup of coffee, That's not even organic or is drenched with a bunch of microplastics and other chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. It's like way too much. So I think that's it for that. The last thing to consider is how to use coffee in a sustainable and healthy way. So the issue with coffee is a lot of people use it to compensate for poor sleep or living life unsustainably. So I'm going to turn this off real quick. It's kind of filled up there. Or living life unsustainably. So just know that when you're tired, it's your body's way of telling you you need to rest. You need to sleep. That's it. And that's all you need to do. That's all that's going to work. But American culture, especially Western culture, it's under like the psychosis of like more. You got more deadlines, more this, more that, et cetera, always be on the go, always be productive. And it produces maybe a good GDP. The problem is it produces like very sick citizens. And, 9 out of 10 Americans right now are metabolically sick. 50% of Americans are on 3 or more medical drugs. 80% at any given time are on some type of medical drug. This isn't normal, you guys. This is indicative of like a very sick culture. And if you want to learn more about that, you can check out my new book, American Culture, Normalized Pathology. And, step out of this mind virus of society, you know what I mean? So you don't get sick, and you're not miserable, and you're not on a bunch of medical drugs. And so you need to rest when your body is tired, and that's it. Not like have more coffee, which is what people do. And the irony is, notice that people that drink a lot of coffee still report being very tired. You know what I mean? Because there is no solution to a tired body outside of just resting more, like sleeping more, and kind of maybe taking a step back and asking yourself, what's going on in my life to cause this chronic fatigue, always being tired, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the time it's just poor diet, irregular sleeping patterns, not enough quantity of sleep, stressful work, harsh internal critic is very exhausting to deal with, and energy taxing, et cetera, et cetera. So coffee's good, but if you're already like sleeping well and have like good natural energy, then it kind of takes you from a neutral to like a positive for performance. Like I try to use it for performance to get a little bit more of an intense workout in. I work out first thing in the morning, and typically after you wake up for 8 hours, it takes your body, takes your central nervous system, 3 to 4 hours to, fully ramp up naturally, but you can kind of fast track it a bit by having some really good potent coffee and stuff like that. So, and just looking over my notes here, and that's it, you guys. So that's it for today. I hope that was helpful. So I hope this, not only saves you a lot of money, because if you're spending like $10 a day on coffee, that's $70 a week, but also just makes you more healthier and just more health conscious in general, okay? So, all right, guys, have a good weekend, okay? Good to see everyone.